To this day, I kind of try to go back in my mind and my life and try to pinpoint moments in my life where I noticed that that was an impact on where I'm at now. When we first moved to this neighborhood, it was predominantly white. Not a lot of Mexicans, but then it all became Mexicans. Anywhere you go, it's like white neighborhood, Mexican neighborhood, black neighborhood. So we kind of never really intermingle with each other.
مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين.
I am Mexican and Palestinian. We were raised with Palestinian culture pretty much my whole life. So a lot of the people that we talked to and associated with were Palestinian Muslim. Until just recently, I've been researching more and trying to get closer to the religion and learn more about the faith. The reaction I get among non-Muslims is they're surprised that I'm Latino and Muslim. The reality is that Islam is diverse and there's so many people converting to it, especially in the United States.
I was born into a Catholic family. My parents were Catholic. We were raised Catholic. At first I thought it was like the Arabs, you know, I thought Christians were white, Catholics are Mexicans, and blacks are Baptists, and Arabs are Muslims, you know. Traumatic experiences in my life, I don't know, I guess I would say it hardened my heart towards God and religion, you know, or faith. I was a heavy drinker and heavy drug user. I smoked marijuana was my drug, a lot, like a lot. And then I ended up going to prison. I did the 2 years in prison as a Muslim, but I was still in the gang life. So I came home, and I came home to this neighborhood. No Muslims around me. Even though my intention was to pursue my life in Islam, I fell right back into the same life. I didn't relate to my parents. It's so difficult to have a religious conversation with people who are not really open to listen about something else.
There's a lot of Latino Muslim people who converted to Islam, and because they converted, their families are mostly Catholic and they don't celebrate Ramadan. They don't have that sense of community or family who is also practicing. So they're sort of in the same situation as I am, because a big part of Ramadan is bringing people together.
Thank you very much for attending our first iftar as Ohala Foundation. Just to let you guys know, I am going to speak in English first, and then I will translate later in Spanish. So in my case, I did take Shahada with my mom when she married my dad when I was about 10 years old. It was hard realizing that I would have to do this journey by myself because my family wasn't really practicing at the time and I didn't have any Muslim friends. I also did learn that if you don't have someone to look up to, then it's your responsibility to become that person for somebody else.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
So I left in 2007, came home in 2009. In 2010, I went back to prison and didn't come home until 2015. I ended up catching a federal case. My minimum was 30 years and my maximum was life. But I remember that one day just asking God, like, man, help me. Give me something, some type of sign or something. They put me in a cell by myself and I find 2 books, James Patterson and a Quran. And in my 8 years of being in prison, I've never, ever seen a Quran laying around anywhere. And I remember reading a passage that said, do you think that just because you say that you believe that you're not going to be tested? I didn't end up having to do 30 years. So the rest of this time in prison, I just stuck by the Muslims, ordered, books about Islam, read as much as I could, and just learned how to pray, fasted, and just avoided everything. Surprisingly, there are a lot of Muslims in prison. I met Cubans, Colombians, Puerto Ricans. This is the Quran I had during my last prison bit. So the first time I made the declaration of faith, I did it on my own. Like any other decision in my life, I always thought that the only person that would be affected by this decision would be me. And just like any other decision in my life, I was wrong.
Is your mom more comfortable with you wearing the hijab now?
Yeah, she still calls me crazy girl.
You know, my mom tried on the hijab just
to try it.
to try it. You know, she's a little bit more accepting now. You know, I had to explain how it was really meaningful to me. It took her like a couple months, and now she's.
Your mom is happy with it now?
She's happy with it. Did you feel like you had to wear it like right after converting?
I actually wanted to wear it since I converted. My mom and my dad, because they're very Catholic, I was just so afraid of their reaction. I guess they haven't seen anybody wearing hijab in Mexico. I walk and I go like this and I turn back. The guy goes like, he looked at me like, and then they went back and looked at me like, what's going on? And actually, when I was crossing the border, my cousins were like, oh my God, they're gonna think you're a terrorist. They might not let us in.
The sisters have, I think, the hardest job of representing Islam, like, because they can't hide. You know, the sisters that cover up, like, they can't go anywhere and not be Muslim. These are the phobes that I have. They're inside out because I just washed them. I have black, white, pinstripe gray. That's my business one. And then I have this one too, a dark blue. And as for me, it's like, I can go anywhere and people just like, oh, like I got a beard. There's so much Arabic and Islam in Mexican culture. You know, every image that you see of the Virgin Mary, Fatima, Guadalupe, anybody that you want, whatever you want to call her, she's always covered. Even nuns, like, which is so ironic to me that people always point fingers at Muslim women. Oh, they're oppressed, they're oppressed. But it's like, well, a nun is not oppressed. She's completely covered.
This is my first Ramadan as a convert, but I fasted 2 years prior. Don't you guys think it's important to feel that like pain in your stomach to kind of like remind you of why we're doing it?
It was last Ramadan remember when we met her?
Yeah.
And I shahada.
Yeah.
You weren't Muslim yet.
No, I
Was that your
wasn't.
first iftar?
Yes, that was my first time. Did you tell anyone you were doing it, or you just?
No, I didn't tell anybody. When I said it, I was just like, oh my God, I'm doing this. Like, I couldn't even tell my family because they're very religious. I'm like, and that's sad, you know, that you can't go to your family.
Here you go, take this one.
Well, what's this not authentic?
No, porque no tenía cilantro. It didn't have serrano. Like, I knew it was gonna come up. I knew that the conversation about, you know, terrorism and stereotypes, and I think that's one thing that either it can make you or break you. You could say, I want to break the stereotypes, or I'm scared of what others might say. Those insensitive comments still continue after so many years, especially for women, because, I mean, you see a man walking down the street and you wouldn't know that they're Muslim. But if you see a lady with a scarf, it's like automatic, it's an automatic sign. I feel like we're more targeted sometimes, just because of the way we look. When people bring up the conversation about 9/11 or terrorism, and I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about. If the real Islam is just so away from it, not even close to it, that you don't even think about it, you know? And the people that know that I'm a Muslim, they're like, well, you're Latina, and you know, the whole issue with like our president, and then you're Muslim, and the whole issue with him and Muslims, and it's like, you're attacked from both sides now.
So people get caught up in the, oh, during Ramadan, oh yeah, you just don't eat. But it's not just about not eating. So it kind of humbles you. It's a time really for reflection. 1 month out of the year for you to get yourself, your soul, you know, your mind and your body, everything together in one thing. Prison is a bad place, but it was such a good place too. Like, there were so many people that didn't know anything about Islam, but knew that Muslims fasted during Ramadan. The first year I was out, they were having an event for the Eid, like for the end of Ramadan, And I went there. So I went and I started, I prayed the prayer, and at the end I started introducing myself to Muslims, and they were, in the beginning, because I look Arab, they were like really open, and accepting, like, hey, and having conversations with me. And then people's eyes started to wander, and they would say things to me like in Arabic, and I would be like, oh no, Mexique. And I remember that first time, it was like a horrible feeling, man. I felt so welcomed, and immediately everything turned around. And then they saw my tattoos, and then they were just like, oh, and then they get to talking in Arabic, and then it was like shunned. And I never felt so alone in a place where there was so many people. Horrible feeling. And I know I'm not the only person. There's other reverts that feel that way. Latinos were not really accepted anywhere. We're not Arabs and we're not blacks. Let's see how that tastes with honey, because these are pretty disgusting. Oh, that tastes way better. This Ramadan has been a huge, huge trial for me, between dealing with my injury before surgery, and now it was fighting between taking medication and not taking medication, and trying to fast, and then not being able to fast. And it's just like, this definitely has been a very testing Ramadan. Yes, we got like 57 minutes and 55 seconds for the next prayer. Well, it's supposed to be this way, northeast. My faith has been wavering. I have highs and lows, just like anybody else.
Every Muslim, no matter where you are, you're all praying at the same time, and you're all praying in the same direction.